So my name is Andrea. I am the owner and founder of Alice and Smith. We're a Montreal-based studio, so pour tout le monde de la guilde, bonjour. Là, fait que je vois la personne qui fait le langage des signes, ça demandait what's going on. Oh no, she's good. She's doing it in English, in French. Good job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed run you through actual delivery that we've done with PlayFab, and how it actually saved us, because there's a lot of the thing that Brendan has shown you and that the team at the Azure Cloud has shown you, so you can see the depth and the capacity from an engineer perspective. There is a huge potential from a low code to no code approach when you want to be mostly focusing on game design, Unreal Engine, Blueprint integration, Unity integration, and may not have a huge, DevOps teams for the backend platform. And that's what I'm gonna walk you through. Example of client that we're running and how much time PlayFab has saved. And honestly, you can transfer that into actual full-time employees that didn't have to develop everything from scratch with a normal platform, but will have to save that time with PlayFab. So let's actually go straight. 3 examples: Catalyst Black, an example of a massive interactive event on Twitch, and a casual web game. So I have those 3 examples. And after that, the reason why I'm going to do that fast is that I want to show you those zero code experience in action. So you can see how easy it is for the game designer to work with the engineering team and kind of build up the game logic and rules and progression in real time, and have the ability to change that without pushing a new update to the marketplace, to Steam, to the iOS marketplace, etc., and have PlayFab having your back in terms of balancing or tweaking or adapting or pushing offer without involving everyone to have to make an update from the games to do so. So quickly, we basically have 3 realms of activity. We have ARG, we have PC console, and backend live up. This is where we mostly have developed our experience using PlayFab, and this is all clients that we leverage PlayFab with. We're going to start with Catalyst Black because I feel it's a great example. Very high speed, low latency, combat mobile game on arena type of challenge. It has been featured on the iPhone 30s at the last keynote in terms of what is in terms of ability. In this one, the technology base involved is mostly PlayFab, Redis cache, Event Hub, these kind of optimization that is done, and a platform specifically that manage the combat. But with it, what's interesting is that there's a trailer in the document if you want to go look at it. But there is the typical kind of loadout management, so ability to have loadout of equipment, limitation between equipment and type of characters, being able to level up your characters, item, etc. All of that is basically and mostly only configuration and rules parameters without having to code everything. There's a lot of that logic that now you don't have to manually do it, but you will do it live in the structure, what Brendan shows in terms of the cloud script, the statistics, the currency, the item catalog. When you really start understanding their schema and their structure, it's insanely powerful to let you make games, or actually a huge part of the game logic and the game foundation already being built and already ready to use, so you can concentrate on, of course, the game itself. So ability to XP earn your characters, the entire characters progression, faction reputation, in that case specifically even item level, and ability to kind of have this level path for the item, trading, all of that is built in, all of that zero code. You can start implementing, playing with it. If you want to make more advanced component, this is where PlayFab backends is open, and you can add more logic. You can spin out some Azure function. You can have even other external system that you can work with. But at the core itself, you can roll out a game like in a game jam. You will be lethal. You will be lethal in a game jam with that kind of platform to help you out. Store, I'm going to show you an example of that. This is the things Brendan wanted to show you. It's very great, extremely powerful for customization, targeting, season pass, PT mechanics. We're going to talk about that gacha system style, kind of those mechanics, multiple currency, faction currency. In 1904, it's a game we have done on Twitch. Sorry for the plug, on Steam. But I think we have 21 faction with all XP and progression path, and concept that if you level up enough in a faction, another faction may start, to put a bounty on you. All of that, no code. You can completely design this with your game design team, and after that, add more advanced component. But you're fully backed by PlayFab to help you achieve that. Other kind of example. This one is a little bit advanced. And this is something we're working on. It's not yet implemented in Catalyst Black, and it's not yet implemented in another client. This is just to give you an idea of already innovation we can do with this. PlayFab has two key components. One is the stream event that gives you a real-time heartbeat of everything's happening in your game, and that you can attach behavior from the backend perspective, kind of like a persistent universe, and you can have logic and action being triggered based on that stream of data. There's also the telemetry API, and the telemetry API is a very powerful JSON API where you can save in a data lake all the activity from your game client. So in that case specifically, we capture key moments like, which characters got killed, which was the loadout, which was the enemy character, what was his loadout, and where in the map he got killed. And the telemetry enables you to re-slice that back and say, take me like the last 50, match, death match, and show me every time this loadout was used against this loadout. And then you can see real time, your balancing challenge and balancing issue. And you know how it is in a competitive game, how challenging it is to reach a good balancing system. The telemetry platform of PlayFab give you a volume of analysis and data that you can process after that with whatever data warehouse you want, or in our case, we process it directly, summarize and process it directly in the game engine so we can visualize, this challenge. But it is extremely powerful. And again, very limited code. This is the kind of stuff you can assemble in a day. I'm not kidding. We could do a game jam together and you will be blown away from how fast and how much time and game developers you're going to save in that. So that's the example of a typical mobile, not typical, I think Catalyst Black is doing a great job. They're running entirely on PlayFab. We've built the backend with them, and they have an incredible, arena comeback and rendering engine. But it gives you an example of what I could say like a game. I'm going to move you to a complete different spectrum where we're going to go into interactive event, like something a little bit more, different from what you're doing. Yet, for many of your studio, this may start to become some client and some project you start getting. So this one was the Paradox Convention remix that was done on Twitch instead of physically. And in that case, we pushed a little bit with Unreal Engine integration with PlayFab and with Twitch. So more activity regarding stream analytics, on-premise behind front door, so full security, piping, protection between PlayFab and your platform, and being able to leverage the entire Azure, infrastructure for protection and for security. So this one specifically, what you're seeing here is a live studio with actors. The entire scene is in Unreal Engine. So basically in that case, we work with Illogica, the great teams that Illogica has designed those, great decors. And technically, instead of hiring a decor teams, we hired a game studio to design all the decor. But since it's an Unreal Engine, and since it's in real time, and since it's powered by PlayFab, you can do a lot when it's time to get the audience interacting with the universe itself. So here's some example of that 3D universe, multiple 3D layout and 3D style. And here's the actual studio where you have that green screen. We can also do it with LED screen and whatnot. In that case specifically, other shot. In that case specifically, there's component in the Unreal scene that players could control from Twitch. Here's, for example, we were load up as hologram. So anyone who run the engine or run the game could also see us as hologram. And the viewers were able to interact from Twitch, get activity that is grabbed by PlayFab, and PlayFab basically consider Twitch and any viewer on Twitch as it will consider it as a player, so with input and whatnot. And this is sent to your Unreal Engine blueprint so you can actually render in real time the action from the audience. So in that case specifically, ability to make vote, to trigger some animation effect in the Unreal Engine scene, ability to have poll and whatnot. So kind of that huge immersion specifically. So just to be sure you understand the structure, your extension, Twitch extension on mobile and on desktop become kind of a controller or an input if you want, or give you the UI with your character status and whatnot. And ultimately, that panel can let you, provide feedback or decision or poll or action that goes, up to Unreal Engine through the PlayFab backend. PlayFab natively integrating Twitch extension and the entire infrastructure here, so you don't have to really worry too much about it. So one simple extension can pipe all this data from your players and viewers. To push it a little bit further, just to give you an idea, we're working right now on a small game jam demo where everyone who's actually logging on the stream channel, so we're streaming an area that's kind of like a Fall Guys style of arena. You log in, you're basically spawning your characters and you control it through the extension. Basically it's kind of a remote, and then you can cast your spell and whatnot. And the audience, as we limit only like 30 characters fighting at the same time, the audience can trigger other type of activity. That's an example of how powerful this can be, fast tracking the process, because we're talking about days of development, not weeks and months, and you have all of that pipe completely natively integrated, and pushing the information to Unreal, PlayFab acting as this persistent central live up backend, and Twitch simply being the UI and that kind of like input mechanism for the players itself. Another thing what's interesting is that keep in mind that since PlayFab can talk with web, if you want to go with an armory style, like creating an armory, or in our case for Paradox Interactive, we have kind of after the event a long tail of like your account and loyalty and prize and whatnot. PlayFab can actually, with your authentication, or provide authentication, directly access the user data. So you could provide, public profile for the characters. They could share it on social media. They can actually have a little bit like, World of Warcraft Armory. They can really see the entire characters. And again, almost zero development. You still have to design, obviously, the website and the UI. But from like the logic perspective, basically already built in, and nothing else to do. Someone is waiting in the guest. This one I'm gonna run through it really quick, but if you are a smaller, not smaller studio, but if you're a studio involved really in the web-based game, this one was assembled very fast. It's a web React integration native with PlayFab using federated identity, so we can have like SSO, Twitch SSO, Steam SSO, Google SSO, whatever you want. And internal messaging, again, all provided by PlayFab. And this one was very simple. Every day, people will get different mission. You have your teams. You can see who's lagging in the team, so you can give him a bump. You can see your team score. You can see your global progression as raising money. Managed to raise 1.7 million. It's not that bad in a month. That's kind of like the spirit and the idea of it. So this here is the example of zero code, in the sense that leaderboard are there, mission are there, team are there, user progression is there, statistics, in that case, bridging with PayPal for donation. But the point is almost zero code. You roll that out and you're ready to go. So that's made a game. I will jump onto the level of UI. This UI is different from what Brendan has presented. As a studio, we've published an extension for the game studio editor of PlayFab. Your data is still in PlayFab. It's just that we kind of made a UI to make it a little bit simpler for game designer to work with PlayFab. But if I jump on the store engine, for example, here's you have exactly what Brendan wanted to show. So the ability to design your store, have rotation rules, decide, every days, minute, month, second, ability to have token where people can pay to like a store refresh in terms of offers. Here's you have an example of tiles in the store. So different tiles I built for my offers. And I go on here with the basic offers. I can say, if this season is VIP or have, the player segment that Brendan showed you is in the season pass, I'm going to offer him, something different. Dust, it's not a good improvement, but and here's if he already owned the item. So I roll my offers, I'm going to end up offering something he already owns. So potentially losing a sales, I'm going to go on here and say, you know what, we're going to offer him like the crystal armor or the boost or whatnot. So you can easily design those store rules and system. Same with crafting. So you have the ability to go on and develop the recipe and say, here's the different like items that is needed in that recipe. Let's be popular with dust. So we need 3 dust, and the output of that would be an armor loot, and the armor loots being a drop table where you can go on and say, you have like, I don't know, a 20% chance of like an epic crafting. You have 30% chance of a bad one, and you have like 50% chance of a total fail. Maybe that's a little bit intense. Let's reduce that. So now we have like only 28% chance of failing the crafting. But again, I'm balancing in real time. Don't have to republish the code. This is, you can have a staging server, you can have like different environment, but if you want to roll out, we're talking about an entire game balancing update, new item, new tons of stuff you can roll out without going through the App Store or the marketplace or the entire deployment process. I'm gonna go out with maybe quickly mission system, ability to have like great mission objective, define the different objective types, so your games are able to process it, automatically get reward for those process. And if we go with the drop chest, which is really interesting, gacha loot style, you have this ability to establish this is my offers, if it's 50% chance, and filter if it's unowned, I can offer something else. And then I can use conditions. So for here example, I have a tier T's. If you're level 10, I'm going to offer you something as a bundle. And also I have PT mechanics. So here's if you reach 100, so I guarantee a drop basically. So if you reach 100 points in your PT mechanics, we're basically giving you that drop. And when you design your catalog inventory, it's very easy. You go on here and you decide all your item, and if you want to say, well, the dust will reset the user PT mechanics, you simply go on, add your information in your catalog, and now you have like the PT reset PT mechanics there. So these items will reset automatically the PT mechanic. I didn't code anything. I went in straight in. It is live. And if you start, calling the API itself and you start authenticating and whatnot, you're gonna be able to, have access to the information. So I'm gonna go in here. So basically you get the session ticket. All of that is done, and you didn't have to do anything basically in terms of the system itself. There's a lot of great feature also. If I just go back a little bit with the welcome, hold on, I'm just gonna go here, load, typing too fast. Load test, there you go. So if we go on here in terms of viewing, you have the ability also, which is really great, welcome package, so setting up the account, deploying all what you want in the release state, and you can have those simulation where PlayFab can tell you, well, this is the potential drop that someone can get with the chaining of your drop, your rules and whatnot. And you can put the PlayFab user, if you're doing QA and whatnot, and you can in real time see, well, the PT mechanic has just kicked in, the offer has just kicked in and whatnot. Now, I'm already out of breath. I haven't not even started to talk about the analytics and the real-time statistics you can get out of this. I'm obviously sold. I think you can see it. And this you cannot develop a game honestly without that kind of backend. You will save like 2, 3 full-time backend developers that you can reinvest somewhere else. So that's kind of that's kind of it. So hopefully someone has a question or no, maybe yes. Kind of that awkward silence where you don't know if you did good or or anyone is. well then, thank you very much for your time, and feel free to reach me. We're developing with PlayFab since 2014. I think we're one of the first or 15. And I can easily say that our studio will not exist if I will have tried to build and invest and do that without PlayFab. The speed at which it gave me the ability to grow the studio, work with clients, and find solution without burning everyone, and etc. It was, I can easily say that our studio survival is directly linked for having choose PlayFab as our backend. The game editors is thanks, Jonathan. Yes, the game editors can be bought on the Azure Marketplace right now. It's labeled PlayFab XR. It will be just renamed XR extension for PlayFab, but you can go on Azure portal, deploy it. It's on premise, and you will have access to the entire UI that just make it a little bit easier to manage it. And you can request new feature for us. We're rolling new feature every month in that platform. So feel free to reach out if you want that, but the core of that is still PlayFab behind that. What? Can I ask how we can exclude us admin to be shown in the data dashboard and in event as we are using the apps a lot? Okay, so it's really depend on the backend architecture, but if I go back here, when we configure our infrastructure, we have a version system, obviously, that enables you to version your stuff. But for your item, when you roll out new item, etc., you have the ability to create state, and when you're running and staging, we're able to strip out a lot of that. We're able to strip out and filter all the event that user will create and all the item he interact when doing staging activity. So if I go back to the PlayFab here, so you have that ability here to patch the XApp version, and you can then filter it out. If you just look at the PlayFab raw data, you cannot. But if you tag it, then when you start using the Event Hub and the Custo database, you can filter all your, internal branch, your staging activity. You can filter out, even realms or area. I mean, it's not really filtered out at that point. You can segment, but this will requires you to either work with the Custo or design yourself a little warehouse. Again, Data Factory, Azure Data Factory with SQL warehouse. In less than a day, you can pipe the entire JSON platform. You can start slicing and dicing with zero code. You can even do reporting in Excel if you want to have like real-time pivot table in Excel. And it's really not that hard. It's just, just need to know where to put your information, how to tag it. But you can tag your API, your player, and your inventory. So you can filter everything that is like next update, next release versus currently live version, versus we have a different version for APAC region or European region or North American region. You can like structure all of that. The dashboard, the raw dashboard in PlayFab will give you a health check of entire thing, but with the tagging you can basically segment the way you want. Does that help answer the question? Hopefully. All right, great. All right. Well, thank you very much. And I'm going to pass the mic to the next person. Merci à tous, d'ailleurs, en français.